Well, it's 7:01, and again, I have no idea if anybody's actually listening. So if there's anybody out there who is currently watching live via YouTube, if you've got a link or a button to press that says something like join the conversation or something like that, then that'd be handy if you can do that, because without that you can't interact. So if I just type a little chat question, if anybody's online, they should see a little chat question pop up. But at the moment it says that I'm the only person here. So if there's anybody listening in, as I say, via YouTube live, then I don't know that you're online. I don't know that you're listening. So I hope that you're there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the presentation, a dry run of the presentation that I'm doing on this Wednesday at NeuroBusiness 2015. And I'm looking for two things really. I'm doing it to make sure that I'm staying on time and that I'm got any clue at all what I'm talking about. In terms of feedback from you, if there is indeed anybody out there, when they originally decided I was going to do this presentation, there was an implication that I had a much longer period of time to use, and so there are really two parts to what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the modeling process, how we extract talents, and secondly how we install them into other people. And then about a month ago, so with only about a month to go until the conference, they told me actually I need 40 minutes. So that was a bit of a surprise. So I had to cut out quite a lot of content. So what I ended up cutting out was the installation bit, because really until somebody's understood the modeling, the decoding bit, then the installation bit's irrelevant really. And also the installation part's the easiest really. So I cut that out. So what I'd like in terms of feedback is, at the end of the presentation, do you feel inclined to come up to me at the end of the conference and ask for more information? Do you feel inclined to come up and say, this is really interesting, and I'd like to talk to you about doing some work with our sales team or our leadership team or whatever it might be. So that's the feedback that I'm looking for. Does the presentation leave you wanting to know more? That would be the ideal. So according to the Google Hangout thing that I'm looking at, I am still the only person here. So I don't know if there's anybody else online or not. I'm going to say that we can't access you, Carol Daubney says. Just let you know, we can't access you. Whatever that means. So let's send an invitation to Martin D. A. Oh, come on. Invitation posted. So I've got an email saying we can't access you, but I don't know if that means that anybody's listening or not. So I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes, see if anybody is listening before I start, just to give these people that I've invited chance to get online. Suppose I should play some music on hold or something while waiting for anybody to join. We're listening. So there's somebody listening. Apparently, it's not showing up on the on my screen. So I presume you're listening in via YouTube, which means I can't see you. But assuming anybody's there, I'm sorry if there is anybody listening, and this is repeating myself. I'm doing this to make sure that I don't have any clue what I'm talking about and to stay on time. But in terms of feedback, what I'm looking for is, does the presentation make you want to learn more about the process and about how it can really be used inside a business? Because the organizers of the conference originally implied that I had a much longer time than I actually have, and that about a month ago, so I'd planned for that and designed my presentation around that. And then about a month ago, they told me I only had 40 minutes, and that came as quite a surprise. So I had to cut out quite a chunk of content, and what I cut out was the stuff about 2 viewers. I wonder who they are. So what I cut out was the stuff about installation, because that's the easiest part. Actually, it's the modeling that's the tricky bit. So I am going to make a start, and I may or may not remember everything I need to say. So here we go. Right. Oh no, that's not what I want. Right, there we go. So that's what I'm Peter Freeth, and this is what I'm talking about. How we can decode and transfer innate talents within a business. There's a human brain. Actually, it's not a human brain, that's a cauliflower. You may have noticed that. I didn't have a human brain to take a photo of. But we're all here at this conference because we think that neuroscience is awesome. We think it's fantastic, and we want to know how we work. We want to understand ourselves. We want to control ourselves. Of course, some people want to control other people as well, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're all fascinated by neuroscience facts. You know, they're in the press almost every week, some new discoveries being made. So, for example, we've almost always thought that nerve cells don't regenerate. In actual fact, they do. Most of your brain is plastic, meaning it can change its function. Functions can move around the brain. So this old idea that, right brain is where creativity is, and this bit over here is where language is processed, is nonsense. Most functions happen across the whole brain, and in fact, functional areas can move around the brain, so that people can recover from damage such as strokes, head injuries, and so on. Your brain has 100 billion neurons, and each neuron has anything from 1,000 to 10,000 synapses. That's connections. Now, of course, this is an American billion, so 100 billion. It's an American billion rather than a good old-fashioned British billion, but it's still a lot. I think you'll understand that's still a lot of connections packed into very small space, and that's what's made it very difficult to understand how the brain actually works, because these connections are so tiny. It's only been fairly recently that we've developed the technology to actually look inside the brain and to see these connections working. So here's some even more amazing neuroscience facts for you. Scientists have electronically inserted memories into the brains of mice. They've put a piece of silicon into a mouse's brain, and that mouse has learned to navigate around a maze. Then they've taken that silicon, they've put it in another mouse's brain, and the second mouse had inherited the memories of the first mouse. Scientists have put a worm's brain into a robot, and what they said was the connectome, that means the map of connections of the brain, the connectome of the worm was mapped and implemented as a software system, and the behaviors emerge. So when they presented the worm with the robot with the same stimuli as the worm, the robot behaved in the same way. It moved towards sources of food, it backed away from light, and after some additional period of learning and practice, it also invited the researchers to bite its shiny metal ass. So as you can see, research and development into robotics and neuroscience are very much working hand in hand. Now, all of this is very interesting. The fact that we can put silicon and we can get the brain to make connections on some artificial implant in the brain. The fact that we can decode the worm's brain, which is only 300 odd connections, rather than the 100 billion that you've got. Really irrelevant unless you've got these in your desk at work. So, you know, if you happen to have any of these in your desk, then you're okay. You can be transplanting skills and talents and knowledge from one person's brain into another. Maybe you've got one of these things, a Siemens convulsator, which is an electro shock therapy machine from the 1960s. If you've got one of those in the office, then that's great. You know, you can make use of this latest research in neuroscience. You can transplant knowledge from, oh, hang on, we can only take it from one brain to another, and that is kind of destructive to the brain that we've taken it from, really. It doesn't really help us. What do we really want then? We don't really want to dissect people's brains and transfer connections from one to another. What we really want is we want to apply our knowledge of neuroscience practically in the workplace or classroom. And what we actually want is we want people to work harder and learn faster. That's it, really. All this stuff's very interesting, but that's fundamentally what we want, and that's what we're here for. And what we really, really, really want is we want a copy of the book Genius at Work that contains the basis of this presentation and how to actually model talents and replicate talents in the workplace. And lucky for you, there's an amazing competition. So at some point in this presentation, that teapot will appear on one of the slides, and the first person in the audience to stand up and shout the words, "Peter, Peter, I can see the teapot and I want a copy of the book," gets to win a copy of the book. It's as simple as that. So keep your eyes peeled for that red teapot. The problems that we're trying to solve today, you know, managers, recruiters, HR managers, they talk in these sorts of terms: the war for talent, the cost of recruitment, knowledge management, culture change. These are the problems pertaining to people within businesses today. The solutions we're looking for are not the war for talent. We don't have to fight our competitors or fight at recruitment fairs or fight at universities for talent. We have to replicate talent. That's a much more sustainable solution, actually, than thinking, you know, the only talented people are out there at a job fair, or, you know, they're out there in our competitors, and we've got to steal those people, and those talents are locked within a person's head. And, you know, the only way we can get at those talents is we've got to get that person, and we've got to keep them and retain them. That's not the way we should be thinking about it. Everybody in your organization has the same basic machinery. They have the same bodies, roughly. They have the same brains. They have the same number of connections in their brains. What they have is different software. And if we can replicate that, we don't have to have a war for talent. We don't have to fight for talent, because all of the talent that you need is already within your organization. We don't have to worry about the cost of recruitment. We have to think about the value of retention. Let's not think about the cost of recruiting high performers, high achievers, top sales guys, proven managers. Let's look at the value of retaining and developing those talents within the people that we've already got. So let's look at recruitment only for adding resource and replacing people who've moved on. Let's not worry about retention from the point of view of what am I talking about? I've lost my thread now. From the point of view of you know, getting talents and special people. You've already got enough of those. Knowledge management, actually what we're looking at, knowledge integration. Knowledge managers, their concern is trapping knowledge that otherwise would leave the organization in people's heads, and somehow having to record that and document it and put it into some kind of library. Actually, if we integrate knowledge into the very fabric of the business, if we integrate the knowledge into the culture of the organization, business processes and things like that, then we can retain much more knowledge without having to have it in some library that people have to go and look at and make sense of. And finally, in terms of culture change, how many organizations try and go through culture change initiatives? It's ridiculous. It's a waste of time. You can't change culture from the top down. Culture is an emergent property. It emerges from behavior. So we shouldn't be looking at culture change. We should be looking at culture alignment. So we solve the problem of culture change by aligning people with culture. And a little bit later on, I'll explain why that's so important. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, does any of this actually work? So what I'm going to be talking about, does it work? Well, in a national UK retailer saved 25% on the graduate development time and cost by structuring their graduate program around the innate talents of the high performers in the 3 roles that they were developing people into. A global engineering company got an 83% success rate during a 2-year talent coaching program. That means 83% of the group, of the high potential leadership group, secured significant promotions within the 2-year time frame. And in fact, some of them were saying, one guy in particular said he expected to get a promotion to a director position after 10 years, and it actually took him 2. Sales conversions, both in a call center and in an engineering company, 200% increase in sales conversions. So that same number of leads, double the amount of sales revenue from that, or closed won sales from that. And at another global engineering company, a 700% increase in profitability in one of their business units. These are the results that we can get from modeling and then installing talents that have already developed within the culture of your business. Now, you've all done this. You've all installed software on a computer, and it's easy, right? You want to update your leadership skills program on your computer. That's dead easy. All you have to do is put the CD in and wait a long time if it's Windows, and it's done. That's dead easy. And it's a good thing, isn't it, that installing software on a computer, that it's not the same installing software into a human brain, because we know what happens. But when we make computers easy to use, we also make them easy to abuse as well. And so, you're all familiar with the idea of computer viruses. Maybe you've suffered from one in the past. And the good thing is, because we can't install software directly into the human brain, then that means that hackers can't install viruses. So there are no brain viruses, are there? Or are there? Oh, there's no sound. Why is there no sound? Okay, right now this should be playing the body form video. Hang on a minute. I'm going to go back. Bear with me a second. Viewers. Oh, no, what's going on? Sorry, bear with me a second. There should have been sound then. Where is the sound gone? Where did the sound gone? Let's try again. Hold on, this has gone pear-shaped. Right, there we go. You can see why I wanted to do the practice run, can't you? Let's try again. Nope. Oh, bugger. This worked earlier. Sorry about this. Just entertain yourselves for a moment, and I'm going to try and work out this problem with the audio, because it's quite important that it works. Because you need to be able to hear a couple of the videos. So my apologies for the interruption in service. Normal service will be reduced shortly. Right, that's working. So why isn't it working from the presentation? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from the presentation back to the video just so you can hear it. So what I'm saying is it's a good job we can't install software in the human brain, because then naughty people would install viruses, and it's a good job we don't have any such thing as viruses, isn't it?
Hi, I'm Barry Scott. Just the one correcto, give it to me. Go compare, go compare. We buy any car, we buy any car, we buy any car, any. Hi, I'm Barry Scott.
Right, let's get back on the presentation. If I can. Sorry about that. I don't know why the audio didn't work from the presentation. It worked earlier. Come on. There we go. Right. So, yeah, brain viruses, of course, we know them as adverts and jingles and tunes that you can't get out of your head, and daft jokes that you can't get out of your head. So, yes, of course, it's perfectly possible to install brain viruses. What about this? What if we could copy this software from one person's brain to another? Somebody who spent a lifetime acquiring certain skills, when they retire, when they leave the business, that all that knowledge is gone. What we really want to be able to do is transfer that into somebody else's brain. So let's have a look at a couple of old theories, and when I say old, these are 30 years ago, so this is ancient history in neuroscience terms. So what we've got is Gleason Goldman in 1985. They discovered an area of the prefrontal cortex in a monkey's brain that turns out to be in our brains and other animals' brains as well. And they call this area, or these nerve cells, mirror neurons. And what mirror neurons do is they reproduce physically within you by tapping into your motor nerves what you see happening with somebody else. So what they allow you to do is two things. They allow you to watch somebody else do something, and you can copy the action. So if you've ever done anything like learning dance steps or learning martial arts or anything like that, where you're watching what somebody else is doing and trying to copy it, then those mirror neurons are what's actually doing that. That they're actually allowing you to do that, and that's what we call behavioral learning, where you're just learning a series of motor actions, and you can't really describe what it is that you're doing. You can't explain what you're doing, but you can just do it. Like if you've ever tried to remember a phone number by tapping out the number on an imaginary keypad, you can't articulate the number or the memory, but you can play out the behavior, and you can watch yourself doing it, and that reminds you of the phone number. The second thing that these mirror neurons allow us to do is have empathy. So we watch somebody else's behavior or their facial expression, and a feeling is reproduced within us. So we actually feel what the other person is feeling. And if any of you work as coaches or counselors or anything like that, you'll pick up very strongly on the strong emotions that your clients are experiencing, particularly with fear, and it can be a very, very powerful feeling for the coach or the counselor. Second theory I want to remind you about, or tell you about, is the simulation theory of mind. number of different theories about what the purpose of the mind is, as distinct from the brain, the hardware that the mind exists within. And the simulation theory says that the function of the mind is to simulate reality so that the brain can close the gap between the current and desired realities. What that basically means is you can think about something that you want, and your body will organize, your brain will organize the behavior, the actions that your body takes, so that you achieve that goal. And actually, when we look inside the brain, we actually do see functional areas of the brain that are a direct mapping to motor outputs, a direct mapping to all sensory nerve inputs, and another area which is an internally generated representation of sensory inputs. So basically, we have two maps. I mean, literally within the cells, the connections within your brain, you have a map of how the world is now, and a map, literally, of how the world needs to look and sound and taste and feel when you have achieved whatever goal or outcome it is that you're interested in. So behavioral modeling, it allows you to observe, to identify, to emulate. And there's a picture of some chimpanzees, I guess, and they're using twigs to get ants or termites out of a termite mound. And you can see the one in front is he's learnt to use the tool, and the one behind him's got one as well. So what happens is, in the wild, one animal figures this out, others watch, they copy, they work out that they can get the same results, and then that behavior then spreads throughout the population. Now, here's another video, which I'm going to stop because I need to show you the actual video with the music. So, what this is right, I'll stop it. All right, sorry about this again. Screen share, yes, go away. Screen share, this one. Okay, so what this is a nice example of behavioral modeling. This is a guitarist. This is from YouTube, and this is a guitarist who is going to do a demonstration of the styles of 10 other guitarists, and it's a really nice example of behavioral modeling. So what he's been able to do is watch these other guitarists, either live or on video, and he's been able to emulate what they do and then transpose that to a different piece of music. So here we go. Right, let's get the presentation back. So that was a demonstration of behavioral modeling, and I hope that you could hear the, there we go. So I hope that you could hear the audio on that. Maybe if you're still listening, Martin, you could drop me a little message and just let me know that you could hear the audio. What that is, as behavioral modeling, is it's a lovely demonstration of it, but that is all that it is. So he's performed in the style of those artists, those guitarists, and he's done Brian May and all those different people. But that is all that it is. What he's learned is to emulate those guitarists and no more. He can do an impression of those, and that's great. So behavioral modeling and just copying what other people are doing is really, it's the basis of apprenticeship schemes. We take a young learner, and I was an apprentice 30 odd years ago, and we put them in the company of more experienced people, and we hope that all the right things will rub off. The problem is a load of other stuff rubs off as well. A load of bad habits and shortcuts and things that we'd really rather apprentices didn't learn. But that's it. We get all or nothing. Behavioral modeling limits innovation because the learner doesn't know why they're doing what they're doing. They just copy it. They just know to copy it. And I'm sure you've seen this as well. I'm sure you've seen people who, as their first step in the learning process, they just become somebody else. They become this kind of role model in their head of a presenter or a trainer or a manager or a team leader or whatever it might be. So what we really want to be able to do is to code behavior, not just copy it wholesale, not just get all of it. We want to be able to pick and choose what we get so we can pass on the most valuable bits and not worry about the rest. And that's how we were able to reduce the time of the graduate program at the retailer by 25%. So what we discover when we code behavior is behaviors are generated by rules, and a culture is a set of rules. Behaviors lead to results, and it's the culture that determines whether those results are desirable or not. So, for example, let's take a really fantastic sales guy who is brilliant in the company that he works for. Currently, he's the top sales guy every month. He outsells all his colleagues by a huge margin. And we get a recruiter to go and poach him from our competitor, and we put him into our culture. And he doesn't perform. He doesn't do. He's just nowhere near the level of performance that was promised. And so what we do is we look for who to blame. We say, oh, the recruiter lied. We say, oh, he must have lied about his past sales results. And people are sarcastic, aren't they? They say, oh, if only he could sell our products as well as he sold himself at the interview. And it's unrealistic. It's the wrong way to look at the problem. The problem isn't to do with his skills or his behavior. The problem is to do with his alignment with the culture. So once we start the modeling process, what we look at is 3 layers. We've got within a person, in the middle, we've got a person's perceptions and thoughts, so how they interpret the world and what they think about that. Second layer we've got is behavior and results, so what people choose to as actions, as responses to what's going on around them, and the results that those behaviors get. And finally, we've got the outer layer, which is the culture and the environment. This is the culture as in excuse me, the rules of the organization that they're in and the environment that they're working in. What happens is when somebody's internal rules that generate their behavior are in conflict with the rules of the organizational culture, what you get is misalignment, and that misalignment quite simply makes it harder for this person to get anything done. They always feel like they're trying to swim against the tide, or you know, like they're trying to wade through water or something like that. And maybe you've been in the situation as well, where you've had a job where it just wasn't the right fit. It just seemed like a great job on paper, but the culture of the organization was just alien to you, and it just seemed like you had to work twice as hard to get anything done. And that is literally what's happening. You're having to work harder to get the same results, and it's tiring. It's tiring to get good results. Now, if we take somebody whose internal rules are very well aligned with the culture, then what happens is every action that they take becomes amplified or magnified. Everything happens easily. They get results more easily. More people get engaged with them, try to help them. Business processes support them. They work naturally. And what we see is huge results. What most companies do, though, what most managers do, and certainly what most recruiters do, is they only look at the results. They only look at the results and say, this person was a fantastic manager. They introduced this big, this big program, or, they're a fantastic salesperson and they overachieve their target every year. What we don't understand is, yes, they got those results in that culture. Drop them into a very different culture, it's not going to be the same. We cannot expect them to get the same results. So where we start with, that's our understanding of the importance of the alignment between the person and the culture. What we need to do now is we need to understand how do we identify a high performer. Is it people that we like? Is it people that seem to be doing the right things, or that seem very busy, or that seem the right kind of person that we want within the organization? Not at all. Identifying a high performer is dead easy. You identify them in hard targets, sales targets, customer retention, staff turnover. These are the areas, these are the metrics that we use to identify a high performer, because of course they're the metrics that ideally are valued by the organization, and therefore they tell us something about the organizational culture. As soon as we find a high performer, we find that they have three qualities. The goal is not the goal. So what you think they're doing, selling, managing, providing customer service, whatever it might be, that isn't what they're actually trying to do. The goal that you value them for, to them, is just a means to an end. And we need to find out what that end is. Their goal is not the same as what it looks like they're doing. Their methods are counterintuitive. So once you actually find out how they're achieving outstanding results, it's a genuine surprise. It's so counterintuitive, in fact, that often they seem to be doing the exact opposite to what you think they're trying to do. So the best salespeople aren't trying to sell. Ironically, the best leaders aren't trying to lead. What they're trying to do is often the exact opposite. Finally, high performers make it look easy. They are the people who seem to get double the results of everybody else for half the amount of effort. For them, it just seems easy, effortless. Excuse me. Once we start to model them, we find out that actually they don't just make it look easy, they actually cheat. They stack the odds in their favor and they make it easy for themselves. So the methodology is based on the fact that they can't explain what they do. And therefore, what you'll hear if you go to a high performer and you ask them, how do you do this? How do you do what you do? How do you get great sales results? How do you motivate your team? Whatever it might be. What you actually get in answer is two things that I call rituals and incantations. So an incantation, and I've got to tell you, these are real phrases that I've heard from salespeople as a customer. The incantation is like a magic spell. It's basically, if I just say these words, then I'll get the right result. I'll get what I want. So I had a cold call from a double glazing company. And the woman said, if you were to order double glazing today, how many windows would you need? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8? Because at some point, somebody that's written the sales scripts has thought, hey, if we only ask customers a closed question that presupposes they're going to order double glazing, then they will automatically say, oh, I'd order 6, which of course is ridiculous because my answer was none. Went to a look at used cars. Sales guy totally disinterested, totally bored, looking at his watch, making it quite clear that he just wanted out the showroom as quickly as possible. And as we were leaving, because he's had his sales training and he's been taught the incantation, the magic phrase that he's got to say, he says half-heartedly at the end, "So, can you see yourself sitting in a new Peugeot?" To which the answer was no, because some clever person who's written the sales training has figured out that if you get people to imagine themselves in the car, then you're halfway home to selling it. Yeah, well, that's got to be aligned with a sales guy who's actually enthusiastic and cares, and doesn't just stand there sighing loudly and looking at his watch and letting you know that you're in his, you're in the way of him and his tea break. And there we are, happy customers sitting in our cars, and therefore we're automatically going to buy them now. A ritual is similar to an incantation. As a ritual is a series of actions. If we perform these actions, then good things will result. So went to look at, did some mystery shopping actually for a mobile phone retailer. And what they do is they take you through this very convoluted and complicated sales process. Part of it is they unwrap a brand new phone for you. And when they give it to you, they don't just pass it across the table or just hand it to you. They do this. They hand it over in two hands. And the instructions in the mystery shopping assignment said they are to hand it to you both hands as if it is something of great value, like it's a diamond ring or something like that. And that, if you went into an exclusive high-end, Bond Street in London, or really posh shop, really exclusive, and you go in there and they're saying, "Oh, good morning, sir. Good morning, madam. How would you like a drink while you're having a look at the phones today?" And all of that, would you like a biscuit with that? If they did that, then this two-hand pass would kind of make sense. But when you're in the high street, in the shopping centre, and the guy sat there and his hair's all a mess, he's wearing a cheap suit, he's got food down his tie, and he's ridiculed you up until that point, he actually sat there and ridiculed my previous choice of mobile phone and snorted at me. Then, when he does that, the two-handed pass, it's completely out of context. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense at all. So the methodology is we identify 3 high performers, we identify 3 average performers, we interview and we observe both of them, and we cross-reference that, cross-reference the interviews and the observations, and then we analyze that and distill that down into the minimum number of steps to reproduce the model. Now, you might think, or you might wonder, why do we compare high performers with average? Why don't we compare the high performers and the low performers? Surely that's a bigger contrast and therefore it makes the process easier. No, because high performers and low performers don't just get different results, they have totally different outcomes. So for example, in a sales team, the high performers goal is to make loads of money or exceed his sales targets, or to make a load of money to pay for his next expensive holiday or something like that. The low performer's outcome is not to sell, it's to avoid being sacked. And so you can't compare 2 people who have different outcomes, because what you'll see is their behaviors are totally different because they're trying to achieve different things. So if we compare the high performers to the average, who are at least trying to achieve the same goal, then that's where we get the contrast that we're interested in. When we do the analysis, remember that the high performer, they can't explain what they do. Anything that they tell you is irrelevant. You can't see it just by watching. What you will see is something that's completely different to the behavioral modeling, just the copying, the emulation that I showed you earlier. What you'll see is something that's emergent. Now, I've lost the sound again, so let me just grab the video, and I'm going to show you a video now of a guy who I met last year, and earlier this year I went to interview him. He's a guitarist, and he uses basically these same techniques to learn new guitar techniques, new methods of playing the guitar. And the other guy that you saw, what he's doing is he's copying other guitarists. So he can do an impression of Eric Clapton. He can do an impression of Brian May. But that's it. That's and no more than that. What this guy does is he takes these styles from other musicians and he integrates them fully into his own personality. And he even writes new music and compositions. He composes using these new styles that he's integrated. What he's going to show you here, this is almost 5 minutes, this video. What he's going to show you is a sequence of demonstrations that build up different styles of playing the guitar. You may or may not recognize the different things that he's doing, but what I want you to do is notice how at each demonstration that he's going to give takes the one that he's done before and adds something new to it and integrates it, and that the whole process is seamless. Okay, so where were we? So that's an example of what I'm calling emergent talent. Emergent talent is where we've got people who, or where we've got a mechanism for integrating skills, integrating behaviors in a way that it becomes innate and natural to the person who we're passing those skills on to. So rather than them just copying and having no idea why they're copying, what we're doing is allowing them to integrate, and most importantly improvise, because you can guarantee it doesn't matter how well you train, for example, your salespeople in all the rituals and incantations that are sure to get your customers, queuing up to buy cars and mobile phones and double glazing. The reality is, in the real world, in a real customer interaction, everything changes. Your customers don't follow the script. That's the problem with rituals and incantations, is your customers and the people that your high performers are dealing with, they don't have a copy of the script. What we're allowing people to do by installing these talents and these skills and behaviors is we're allowing people to adapt to every new situation, to adapt and to continually evolve best practice. See, if what we did, and this is a typical top-down kind of approach that you'll see companies adopt, they'll say, right, we want to make all our guitarists just like that guy, and his name's Byron. So we'll just tell our guitarists from now on to be passionate and to be best in class, and to go the extra mile and to enlighten our customers. See, that's really interesting, because when I asked that guy Byron, the guitarist, what was his goal, what did he really want from the audience, it took a bit of digging, because his first answer was, for them to have a good time and to enjoy it and all that. No, you don't. That's irrelevant, because that's about them and that's out of his control. What does he want? If the audience were completely under his command, what does he want? And what he actually wanted was to enlighten them. He wanted to show the audience something they'd never seen before, something that would make them leave his performance saying, wow, and feeling, the word he came up with was enlightened, to enlighten them. And you can certainly see how he achieves that through the way that he uses the guitar. Another thing that I hear a lot in training in HR departments is about making learning stick. How do we make learning permanent? How do we get people to remember stuff after they've left the classroom? And look at this. We've got all these different websites and articles and books that I found on making learning stick. Knowledge retention. This is all a red herring. This is all, this is all training companies trying to make their training stand out, saying, this Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, and people need to repeat something a certain number of times before they retain it. And it's all about retention and testing and knowledge. And what do you remember from the sales course that you were on last week? It's nonsense. It's a waste of time. It really is a waste of time. When we do the installation process, it doesn't matter that people retain it or not. The point is that by the time they've left the classroom, their behavior has already changed. Drop them into the working environment and they will display the new behaviors, the behaviors that you want them to take on. Here's an example. So this is a shelf in a retailer that I've been doing some work with over the past couple of years. And in the middle, these are tubes of hair dye. And in the middle, you can see there's one there that's been damaged. Now, the obvious question for you as a consumer is, if you walked into a retailer to buy some hair dye, would you buy the one in the middle? And I'm guessing, I can't hear you, but I'm guessing that the answer is no, you wouldn't. You'd pick the one above, or actually even the one below has got a little bit of damage on it. You can see at the edges there. And this raises a number of questions. You know, if you're a retailer, if you're the manager of this store, it's, how did this damage happen? Okay, so the damage happened. How did it end up on the shelf for a customer to buy? And thirdly, the person who's put this product out, why are they being so stupid as to put it on plain sight? At least hide it. At least put the box in backwards. At least put some sellotape over the end of the box and have a go at repairing it. It's not just incompetence, it's arrogance. It's utter disrespect for the manager of the store. It's saying, you know, through not following the practices that are laid down in the procedures manual, I've damaged a product and I couldn't care less, and I'm going to put it on the shelf for everybody to see. It's unbelievable. What we have in this retailer is two types of employee, and we'll call them Rosie and Daisy. Rosie is, and hopefully some of you are shouting, Peter, Peter, I can see the teapot, I want a copy of the book. You don't get one, sorry. Rosie is a very conscious, she's a lazy employee. What she does is she just thinks, all right, I'm going to open this box and put these tubes of hair color out. I've got to open the box. What should I open it with? And she can see a pair of scissors, so she just pokes the pair of scissors in the box, or a craft knife, which is what's happened to the photo in the photo that you saw previously, because all she's thinking about is saving her time. Open the box, get the products out as quickly as possible, go and have my tea break. Meanwhile, Daisy, who's a very conscientious employee, she thinks, but if I use the scissors to open the box, I might damage the boxes, and then the customers will be unhappy and my manager will be unhappy. So I'll just save myself some time and go and get the safety knife. What's interesting about both of them is if we just look at the external behaviors, then what the managers do is they call Rosie lazy, irresponsible, doesn't have good attention to detail, doesn't follow the procedures. And Daisy, they say, oh, Daisy's really conscientious. She's one of my best, she always does the right things. She always does things by the book. Actually, if we look inside Rosie and Daisy's heads, what we see is that's not the case. They both think about using the scissors. They both think about opening the box the wrong way. The difference is Rosie doesn't play the consequences out in her mind. Daisy does. So they both are motivated by saving themselves time. It's just that Daisy realizes she'll only save herself time if she does it properly. That's the kind of adjustment that we make during the learning process, the adjustment of long-term consequences, working through what those long-term consequences are. Of course, this has got to be supported by management practice. If the managers let staff get away with doing things the wrong way, then nothing will ever change. So that's changing the culture, or reinforcing the cultural environment and the rules of the culture that then align with the rules that we want people to be following in order to exhibit the right behaviors. Quite straightforward. When we undertake the installation process with training and this thing about making learning stick and measuring the success of training by retention, what our goal is, our goal is retention. Our goal is that people remember stuff. But for what I'm talking about here, the installation process, the goal is not retention. The goal is autonomy, because autonomy breeds innovation. If we allow people to be autonomous, what we're installing is actually not behaviors. We're not teaching people to do stuff, because you already had all of the behaviors that you needed for your entire life by the age of about 2 or 3. By the time you were about 2 or 3 years old, you already knew how to do everything that you have ever done in your life since. What you've learned since then isn't behaviors, it's decisions, because the decisions are the steps, they're the rules that allow you to assemble these small behavioral programs into complex behaviors that get complex results, like delivering presentations or delivering coaching sessions or managing teams or whatever it might be. It's innovation that breeds excellence, not having the best skills or the, following the rituals and the incantations. What gives excellence, what breeds excellence, is innovation, the ability to adapt, the ability to evolve and stay in step with changing customer behavior. So we're not looking to install behaviors, really. I know that's what we've talked about, but in actual fact, what we're actually installing is decisions. And the test is very simple. Can the learner reproduce the results of the role model? That's it. So can we install the model, install what we've discovered, and then can we let the learner loose and observe that they get the same results? Not whether they say they can, not whether they can remember what the steps are. That's irrelevant. Can they actually do it? When we drop them into the same environment, do they get the same results? So to summarize the overall process, we extract the model from the high performer. We distill it by cross-referencing high performers with average performers. We then have an installation process, and the installation process is very simple, and it can take many different forms. It can be done with groups, it can be done one-to-one, we can even install via business processes, and then we test. So we extract by interviewing and observing, we distill by cross-referencing, we install, and that's where we think about instructional design and how that works, and then we test by reproducing the results. Simple as that. And our measures of success are, for the extraction, we're looking for hard KPIs. You remember I said things like sales targets, staff turnover, staff satisfaction, things like that. When we distill, what we're looking for is the fewest steps to reproduce the result that we're looking for. We know that the installations work because it works for anyone. We can take anyone from within a business, we can run them through the installation process, we can let them loose in the environment, and they'll get the same results. And the test is within that environment, within that context. We drop them into the environment, put them in front of a customer, and observe that they deliver customer service to the same degree of customer satisfaction as the high performer did. To talk about it as a linear process, of course, is a little bit misleading. It's actually a cycle, because once we've tested, what we've then got is a learning, living, adapting, evolving model of high performance. What will happen is your customers are interacting with other service providers, they're interacting with your competitors, and their behavior is changing, their responses are changing. And so if we're installing the model correctly, the model will evolve. It will, the model or the high performance behaviors will evolve. They will change over time. So what we actually need to be doing is, once we've installed that across the whole of the team, we can then look back 6 months later and we will find the best practice has changed slightly. So we need to look at the modeling process as being an ongoing cycle, where we're maintaining and evolving and sharing best practice within a team or within a business. So that's the end. I'm going to have a Q&A now, and at the end of the Q&A, I'm going to say, I'll leave you with some tips or some advice, which is, don't look outside your organization for talent. That's not where it's to be found. Only hire for resource. Talent is already within your business and it's evolving. Don't spend money on alien training programs. Don't go out and buy an off-the-shelf fantastic leadership program or the new fantastic sales training program, because within 6 months it will be gone. You can train all your salespeople, all your managers. Within 6 months, that latest whizzy fantastic program will have disappeared without trace, and it will have disappeared because it is not aligned with the culture of your organization. It didn't evolve within the business. Don't look outside for the answers. The answers are already within your business. Replicate what's working now. And finally, you can't allow innovation and creativity. I hear managers saying, oh, we need to foster innovation, we need to make people more creative. No, you don't. You cannot allow innovation and creativity. It's a given. It's part of what happens when you employ humans. You can't make people innovative and creative. They already are. What we need to be doing is looking at them and modeling, what are they innovating, what are they creating, and then how can we extract that, share that within the business to share those results for everybody. There's some resources that you can go to. You can go to my website. You'll see there's a link on the homepage that's got, you'll see there's sample modeling reports. There's links to some of the videos that I've shown you today. There's links to some bits of research and some other stuff that you can read. And of course, you can buy the book. And that is all that I have to say on the subject. Oh, that's the link on the homepage. That's where you'll find that. And that is all I have to say on that subject. Thank you very much. So the first thing I've noticed is that that's quite a bit over 40 minutes. But I did spend quite a bit of time fiddling around, unfortunately, with that technical problem I had with the videos. So, as I said earlier, what I would appreciate for anybody who's still listening is, I felt that was quite disjointed, but that's probably because I haven't run through that in over a month. So I felt it was a bit disjointed, but it may not have come across that way. I don't know. So I'd be interested in any feedback that you can email me on, you know, whether it seemed to make sense and hang together, and whether it, you know, seemed to get the message across in terms of what's possible, what's achievable with the process, and a bit of a taster into how it works. But most importantly, that it's left you thinking, yeah, this is interesting. I want to find out more about that. That's the that's what I'm really trying to achieve, and that's if anybody's still out there, then that's what I'd like some feedback on, if possible. So I'm going to stop the broadcast shortly, and I'm just again, for anybody who's still there, then just I'm very grateful for your time and your attention. Thank you very much for joining me.